Or shift a little to the left, just so that light isn't so bright to your left. Yeah, that's actually better. Just so the light's not behind you so much.
Okay.
Right.
All right, so I'm gonna kick it off. So
Let's pick up a piece of paper.
good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us again for another Tuesday Social Club. We really appreciate you coming out. We have had many guests in our brief quarantine time, and we're very excited to have our guest who's here tonight. But before we do the introductions, I just want to show a short video so that you can kind of get a little more background. And if I can make it all work. Let's
Share
see.
screen, share audio.
Share computer, share audio. There we go. And then we're going to go here. And then we'll just do this full screen. All right. Here we go.
I just love buses. I know a lot of people hate buses, but I don't drive. And like the old thing says, you're driving up to us, ride the bus. Probably could write a story about the bus. My name is Loretta Claiborne. I was born and raised right here in York, Pennsylvania. I didn't always have a voice. Everybody wants to have a voice, but when you're the kid that's always pushed away, it makes it tough. My mother fell down the step when she had me. And I was born blind and didn't walk to the age of 4. I probably wouldn't go to school. I probably wouldn't be able to read. Don't even think about getting a diploma. I remember sitting at the table and my mom would say, "Oh, Stella, you're going to be really good at this, and you're going to do this, and you're going to do that." And then it'll get to Debbie. "Oh yeah, Debbie, you're going to do really well." And I said, "What about me?" And she says, "You're just going to be Loretta." You know, that's kind of sad. And I would just hang my head down. I said, why do I have to just be me? What happened to me, I got angry. So I didn't have to use my voice. I used my fists. And that's how I thought maybe I would communicate to get by. As I got into going to high school, I was having some struggles because I couldn't read that well, or I didn't fit in. The kids looked at me and says, "Hey, you, Special Eddie, we don't know retards in this class." And I got in trouble again. I took a hammer to a guy. Call comes on the intercom, "Can Loretta Claiborne please show up at the Gilreath's office?" He got me settled down. He said to me, "Loretta, you can't live your life like this. You got to learn that your feet will take you more places than using your fists." And I didn't know it, that something was going to happen that's going to change my life. He had me a paper. I couldn't even read it. I remember the word Olympics. I started running in 1966, so nobody really cared, but Mr. Lee, he had a pill that worked, and it didn't come out of a bottle. It was the York County Special Olympics, 1970. This coach came to me and says, "Well, Loretta, what do you want to run? Do you want to run 100, or do you want to run the 50-yard dash?" I shook my shoulders. Why should I speak? Nobody cared. What was the purpose? He says, "Loretta, you have a mouth, and I want you to use it." And I think that was a turning point in my life. My advocate says, "Loretta, I think you can speak." And I said, "Why do you want me to talk to people?" I said, "I don't talk to people. Who cares about people like me?" She says, "Loretta, you can really help." "Hi! Love you!" She took me out to Monroeville, PA. I walked in the room and I looked around, looked at the people. I'm standing there in my little thrift shop dress, and then I started speaking. It just came out. I didn't have a note in my hand or anything. And then people would ask me to come out and speak to their groups. Never made a penny for it. I just enjoy speaking. What I made out of it was that it was going to make a difference in people's lives. Today I'm going to talk about the power of voice. Our voice, your voice, and how your voice can lead you into the next step in life. Thought I would never be able to do anything. My voice has took me across the globe. Today, I speak to presidents. Yes, I sat at the dinner table with President Barack Obama. I've spoken to the Pope. And the reason why, it wasn't because I was a good athlete. It wasn't because of the color of my skin. It wasn't because of where I came from. It was because they chose me, that they know they can trust in me, and they could say to me, Loretta, you have the power of voice that's helped changing how people are going to be respected and treated. I use my voice that somebody like me, the youngsters coming up today, older people still today, senior citizens who have intellectual disabilities, they still need rights to be fought for. The right to better health care, the right to live in an apartment, the right to be able to work. Young people, you as an individual have a voice. Please use that voice. If I could just make this world better by just doing one little thing for somebody else, it is worth it. I have this joy that I share with others. If you can talk to one person and change that one person's mind, then that'll spread to 2 or 3 or 4 or 100 or thousands. So if I could just change 1 or 2 minds, hopefully it'll spread on to more.
Great. All right, everybody. So our guest tonight, if you haven't guessed by now, is Loretta Claiborne, Chief Inspiration Officer, Vice Chair, Board of Directors for Special Olympics. I'm going to read a little bit of Loretta's bio. You saw some of it in the video clip, but let me tell you a little bit more. Loretta's truly an amazing woman who has not only touched the lives of hundreds of thousands, but has changed the lives of all whom she's met. A woman of faith who shares her personal story to promote hope, tolerance for people around the world. In 2000, Walt Disney Productions created the Loretta Claiborne story about her inspiring life. I think I've watched that several times. Loretta is a world-class runner, gifted motivational speaker who happens to also be a Special Olympics athlete and a person who has an intellectual disability. She is a celebrated game changer, and her accomplishments include receiving 1 honorary doctorate degree from Quinnipiac University in 1995 and an honorary doctorate degree from Villanova University in 2003. She's completed 26 marathons and finished twice in the top 100 women in the Boston Marathon. Awarded the 1996 SB Arthur Ashe Award for Courage, acquired a 4th degree black belt in karate, and is being inducted into the, or have you already been inducted into the Women's Sports Hall of Fame?
Yes.
And to the Special Olympics Pennsylvania Hall of Fame. Accomplished
Yes.
public speaker, notable engagements include introducing President Clinton at the 95 Special Olympics World Summer Games, appearing twice on the Oprah Show. She communicates in 4 languages and is fluent in American Sign Language. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you Loretta Claiborne. Welcome, Loretta.
Well, thank you. It's an honor to be here and talk to all my counterparts. Athletes, we're one big family. I know you, like me, is going through some time with this COVID or Corona. To me, Corona was a typewriter many years ago. Now it's a virus. But anyway, I know what you're going through because I'm going through the same thing. You can't go to the gym. You can't see your friends. And somebody said to me, Loretta, if you could do one thing, what would it be? I said, to be in my Special Olympics events with my friends training and having a good time. And it's not about the medals. It's just about the friendships that I have gotten from Special Olympics. I used to live such an angry life. And I know many of you, you're probably doing the same thing. If somebody asked you the question, you'll say, missing my friends from Special Olympics, because Special Olympics is my family. I know you wanted me to talk about the Chief Inspirational Officer, but I'm going to go back a little bit. And it goes back to the 80s. And I'll never forget Miss Janet McFarland. She was from New York. A lot of you have heard of New York. And she was called by the governor to have this woman to come up and run in the race. And I looked at Miss Janet and says, I'm sorry, I'm not doing that. I'm going to bowling. And then as time went by, she showed up at the bowling thing. Everybody went to bowling. I had my running clothes. So I know how my mom was. If I didn't go to the race, my mom set me up in a sense, because this lady came to pick me up to go to this race, and we raised this money for the Ark. I won the race. And on the way home, she didn't know if I could speak or not. Because what was funny, she had kids next door, and I would go babysit those kids. And then she had a cat, and that's what drew me to her house, because the one little kid always wanted to play with the cat, and we go. And here I didn't think it was, who would ever thought many years later that this is one of the people who helped change my life. And she would say to me, Loretta, did you ever try speaking? And I looked at her with a mean face. I don't do that. Like, as who cares? People like me don't do that. And with some persuasion, she got me into a group called Speaking for Ourselves. And it was about 2 hours from my home. I went with her, stayed overnight with her mother, and she would take me to these group meetings. And I've already been in Special Olympics 7 years, but there was no athlete programs other than your sports. So there was no leadership programs. There was no global messengers. All that stuff came many years later. And she took me to some schools to speak. At the time, children were just in the country and being put into schools. So I schools and speak to young people about bullying and how to accept the students who are going to come to the school because they deserve the same right for education. And many years later, I started on the board of Special Olympics Pennsylvania. And the first time I served on the board, I said, I'm not doing this no more. And I wanted to quit. But back in my head, I knew what my mom says. You don't quit nothing until I tell you. Because once you quit something, you use the rest of your life to quit. You'll be quitting the rest of your life. And she was right. She was correct. So as time went by, I served on this board of directors. I re-signed up. I was hesitant about it. And I'll never forget it. They wrote me this letter and says, Loretta, we like time I was on the board, I just sat there. I was like a token. My hand up, and I would ask the question at the end of the meeting. And it was basically, we're going to have that spot for Loretta. Just asked her one or two questions. Well, today, I know some of you are leaders. And when you go to your events, you speak. And I hope you do speak. I hope you just don't go to board meetings and sit. So as time went by, I was asked to serve on the board of directors for Special Olympics, which was, the office was in DC. It still is, but different place. And I took my chance and I stepped out of my box because I wanted to quit that board so bad. That wasn't my forte. I just want to play sports. I just want to go do my gym. I want to do my martial arts. I want to do my knitting. It was all about me. And then finally, people would talk to me and says, Loretta, you have so much to offer. So I did. I stuck with the board. I got more involved. And then again, they had different things. And they says, oh, well, to be a board member, you have to do this, this, this. Well, being a person who didn't have a lot of resources, like, how am I going to do this? But through it all, I said, I'm going to stick with this. I'm going to stick with this. And a gentleman by the name of Dave Lennox in the 80s had this new program. It was called Athlete Leadership. And I would go to the office and I said, Dave, why you always have that piece of paper up on the side of your door that says, show me the athlete? He says, Loretta, this office has a lot of people and there's athletes at work here. And some of these athletes have been working here for years. I want this office to understand that these programs are for the athletes, but the athletes can have roles in how they want their sports to be taken care of. It should come from the athletes, not somebody with a suit that's never been in a sport. And just a couple of months ago, I sat in a meeting and we were talking about an argument about should we call them unified partners or should we call them unified teammates? And I stood up, I waited till everybody debated, I put my hand up, and the lady says, oh, we're gonna cut. I said, I've been waiting for my turn. And another gentleman says, yes, she has been waiting patiently. I said, we're up here talking about what do we call the athletes who are regular ed students? I said, how many of you play sport? And they looked back and 2 hands went up and mine. I said, now, most of you don't play sport, but if I'm on a team and I'm playing basketball, I don't care if the athlete's a normal athlete or not. He or she would be my teammate. And it just went back and forth, back and forth. And I said, well, you want me to be here and I'm going to speak here on behalf of the athletes. If you don't play sport, you don't understand why the other person's a teammate. But the other 2 gentlemen and I asked them. And of course you got my answer. They are my teammates. So it's things like that. And when I think about going to these meetings, you get intimidated because the people are wealthy, number one. They have corporations, number 2. They might have played sport many years ago. There's a few people on those boards who probably just finished sport, but I'm there for the safety of the athletes. And my main mission is not Loretta Claiborne. My main mission is to see our movement grow, be more recognized, see our athletes take more roles, whether it's to have an upgrade in their job at the office, whether it's them to take part in wanting to be a coach with the proper training, they could be a coach. You can be anything. But when they called me one time, they said, Loretta, we need somebody, and you've been representing this movement for a long time. We want you to be the chief inspirational officer. And I'm looking back and says, what's that? And it took me some time. And the person on the other end of one of these phones, Mrs. Mason, sat down and talked to me because I was going to deny that too. And then I had another woman talk to me and some people from SOI, then I agreed. And what does my job entail? It entails a lot. A lot of times I have to sacrifice and give up things because the chief inspirational officer might have to be in DC at a meeting to raise money for government. It's not easy. I have to give reports. And I make sure that when I give these reports, that it's about concerning the movement and where it's going, whether it's about finances. I have to know a little bit of everything. I don't mind it. It's not the easiest job. I remember one time I was going somewhere with some friends of mine and I got a call that week. And I said, I'm sorry. I had to call my friends and said, I'm very, very sorry. I have to be such and such a place. And my friends were a little upset, but I said, I told you all before, first and foremost, Special Olympics, if they call me for something, I leave. That's my number one priority. I don't represent Loretta. I represent a movement of people with and without intellectual disability who will have the chance to come together. If you choose that something happens in Maryland that you don't like as athletes, it's just like being an activist. I don't know if you know what an activist is, but Martin Luther King would have been an activist. Someone who gets up and fights for the cause. Right now with the COVID-19, I was upset, and it was a holiday, and it was right before Easter. I'm watching the TV because I had to keep up on things. It's not something I want to keep up, but I have to keep up because I want to make sure that our people had the same rights to health care as anyone else. And I read an article, and then it came on the news that people who live in group homes aren't going to get the same opportunity if they would get sick in New York State. And it really upset me. And I wasn't here in my home. I was away for 7 weeks. I quickly got a piece of paper. I start writing down things. I got on my iPad. I emailed something to Megan. And I said, I want you to just tell people that this is not right. And that's what the chief inspirational officer does. They just don't sit in board meetings. They go out and advocate. So being the chief inspirational officer, it can be tough. I remember one time I got called and they said, Loretta, we need you to be in a state. And I got up that Tuesday, 4:00 in the morning, flew all the way out to this state to speak to this gentleman. And I spoke to him about some words that he had used in the paper. And within a half hour, at this little lunch, I got up that morning, we went to this half-hour lunch. It has changed that man's mind about how he treats people with intellectual disability. And he didn't use the wording that he used in that article again. And another gentleman from the board came and he looked at me. He said, Loretta, I think he understood. And that's what part of my job is. If somebody does something wrong, makes a movie, makes inappropriate type things, as a chief inspirational officer, I got to be there and say, hey, look, what are we going to do? And we all come together. And there's a lot of times I have to get up, leave my house, no matter what I'm doing, lock it up, get on a plane, fly out, and fly back the next day. It's not easy, but it's worth it. It's worth it to me. And I'm sure a lot of you who are on this call can be the next chief inspirational officer within yourself. Don't let nobody tell you what you can't do. Like Eunice Kennedy Shriver said to me one time, I was down at the office. I said, oh, and she says, don't give me no excuses, Loretta. Don't tell me what you can't do. You show me what you can do. And I was at her house, her son's house, for 2 weeks. And I had all this stuff planned. But was the stuff important to me? Yes, it was. But it wasn't important to how I can make a difference as one person in this movement, and how I can make a difference as an athlete to sit on that board. I don't like to say sit. I don't even know why I said that. To serve on the board of directors, that our athletes have the same rights as everyone else. And the athletes who serve on the board should be listened to just as well as we listen to somebody else on the board. And that's basically a part of my job. I don't mind it. It's hard at times, but when I turn around and see what our athletes are doing, it's worth it. It's worth it. I always like to say my people are people like me, because we're all in the same boat. As people would say with the COVID thing, it says, oh no, we're not in the same boat. Everybody's got a row to oar. I said, I don't know what term you want to use, the same ocean. I said, but there's no difference. We all got to pick up and pull our rope, and maybe we can move the rock that is 10 times bigger than us if everyone takes part. And as a chief inspirational officer, that's part of what my job is. I do a lot of training now like this. I was just doing a training a couple nights ago. I was up in New York State. We trained some people to become athlete input council people. And I tell you what, we gave them the tools and we thought, okay, we said to the athletes, this is something you want to do 6 months down the road. Well, they didn't like how they gave out the awards at the Winter Games. That next day, those athletes stood up, went to the people who ran those games and said, you should give your medals out right after the event and not have our lower skilled athletes standing out in the cold, or any of our athletes. They changed it that quick. And it was the power of an athlete, of a group of athletes, just like you. And I know, and Marilyn, you guys are doing some fantastic things. And I hope that each and every one of you will become a successful person in what you do as you go down to the road. And who knows, one of you might be the next Chief Inspirational Officer. So now it's time for you to ask questions. And I always say a wise one asks a question while a fool will argue with the fact. And there are no fools in this meeting, because I know you have lots of questions to ask. Thank you.
Thank you, Loretta. So I did ask some people to submit questions in advance. So I want to make sure we get to them first, because I always like to reward people who read and follow the directions.
Yes.
We
have board members that don't do that, and I sit on 3 and 4 day boards. We have meetings that are a week long, and they look at me and says, Loretta, how do you know about this? I said, I read my work. I do my homework.
So Ben, can you unmute Sam? And if Sam remembers his question, then I'll let Sam ask it. So.
First things first, I wanted to thank you for coming, because you're an inspiration to all of us. So I wanted to thank you before I forget. My question was, and I actually did a little bit of research about you, and I saw you got to meet the amazing Denzel Washington. He got to present an award to you, I believe.
Yes, I didn't know him from a hill of beans.
That's okay. What was it like to get an award presented by him?
You know, it was really neat, because he's a role model to the African-American community. And I said to him, boy, I'd like to take and make a carbon copy of you and put you in each community, because our young African-American men could use some of your expertise. Mm-hmm. He's a true role model. And just receive the award from him was an honor.
Was he nice? I'm sure he was a nice guy.
He asked me, he looked at me, he said, Miss Claiborne, can I have a copy of your speech? Do you have it? I said, yeah, it's written right here on my hand. There was nothing on my hand. So if you didn't get it then, you won't get it.
That's amazing. That's all I have to ask, actually. So I guess we go to the next person.
Thank you, Sam. I appreciate it. So, Ben, we're going to go to Elena next. And Elena, you have 3 questions, but to be fair to everybody, I just want to make sure if you can just pick one for now.
Or she can combine it into one.
Yeah. So hi, Loretta. It's
Hello.
very good to see you again. I remember meeting you at the 2016 SONA Health Messenger training. And yes. I think my top question for you is, when you very first started out with Special Olympics, did you ever think you would go from where you were then to all the amazing opportunities you've had today? And what is your all-time favorite sport and memory?
Well, you know, when I first started out in Special Olympics, I wanted to quit. And I told you about this story. My mom said, you don't quit nothing in my house, because you start quitting the day you always quit. And I never forget when I first started, I just wanted to quit. And here I am 52 years later, still participating in like 9 sports. So it's only been a true blessing and joy. It's my dream that became reality. And one of the things I wanted to be was an athlete, a veterinarian, and a nurse. And I knew that with my reading skills and comprehension, I wasn't going to become the other 2, but just to have the opportunity for somebody to accept me as a part of their team, because I helped started the track team in my school before Title IX for girls to have a right to participate in sport, and got told right at the last minute after the principal signed everything, we don't want no retards. And that hurted me, but here I am today. Special Olympics is my baby. It's my love. And I'm enjoying it just as much now, or even more than I did when I was younger.
Excellent. Great. Thank you, Elena. Great question.
You're welcome.
Ben, we're going to go to David Godoy, if you can find him.
Go ahead, Mr. Godoy.
He says, certainly very nice to meet you today.
Well, thank you.
What do you recommend to other athletes to become, to overcome their fear and the stress level when competing for the state games or qualifiers?
Well, everybody has a different solution, but when I am competing, I try to go somewhere and sit down, just shut my eyes just a little bit for an instant and take some deep breaths. And just think about, like, if I'm running a race, I think about how I'm going to run the race. And I know I'm in a pretty tough category. I try to get rid of those jitters. And everyone has a different way of doing some people might exercise, but I like to just sit down and just take a deep breath for a minute or two before I get out. And it's the same way with going to board meetings and having to speak to big groups. I try to find something to relax me. Sometimes I'll pick up my knitting if I have it with me and knit a couple stitches and just think in my head before I go out to a meeting or something like that if there's a break and I have to give a presentation. Or, you know, I try to do something to relax myself. It might be just doodling on a piece of paper, but I try to relax myself before I go out to a competition or have to give a big meeting. Everyone is different. And yes, the stress level, even with now, this is very, very stressful, but I have this little saying that I say every day because I was getting depressed. Faith trumps over fear. And this whole thing with COVID is fearing a lot of people. And I'm seeing a lot of people being feared. I just made up this little thing, faith trumps over fear. We used to play a card game called Trumps. And you had the black ace of spade was the trump card. If you had that, you could beat anybody's cards and then you could take their books. So that was the trump card. So faith over trumps fear. And that's what we have to learn to do, is over trump our fear.
All right. Thank you, David. Really appreciate your question tonight.
You're welcome.
Ben, do you see if Anastasia is on?
No, she's not.
She is not. Okay. She has a question that actually several people submitted to us. Well, two questions. So, Loretta, what are the 4 languages that you do speak is the first question.
I'm not perfect in any language. Of course, I speak English, as we all do. I sign. I speak a little bit of Spanish, and I'm learning some Arabic, and I know some Russian, just enough to get by. And I never forget when we were in Japan, we walked through some little market, and one of the coaches says, "How much is this? How much is this?" And he was getting really frustrated because the man was trying to sell, and I walked up to him and said, "Ikura," in Japanese. And the guy says, one. And I said, "It's $1. So get your money out, your Japanese money, and it's $1 in American money." So I just like to tittle and learn languages that when I go somewhere, even when I went to the Middle East, I could speak some Arabic. I don't need to know the whole language, just enough to welcome.
It shows respect to the host
Exactly.
country,
I don't want to be the ignorant American, as they would say. And they were shocked when I walked up to somebody. We were in a hotel, and I said, "Kaifa halik?" And the guy looked back, and then I said, "Bikayat shukran." And he said, "Afran." So we were there talking, and then nobody could believe it. And people just accepted me, just to learn those few words.
Excellent. That's a great lesson. And also a similar question with 2 or 3 people. What was it like being on Oprah or being around Oprah and meeting her?
She's a really neat person. I remember the first time I met her, it was hard because she kept on using these big words. And my sister and I, we were down at the White House, and this lady comes up, and I knew she was on the Baltimore News because we got the Baltimore News. And she started using these words, and I didn't understand. And I finally just nicely turned around and waited. I said, "Excuse me, ma'am, I don't understand what you're saying. Can you speak in plain English? We hit it that quick. That quick.
Yeah.
I just waited for a time and I said to her, I don't understand what you're saying. And I've been on her show about 3 times. And every time we go somewhere, or she's somewhere and she sees me, she recognizes me. So it was really a good turnaround.
Excellent.
I was not afraid to ask her.
Excellent. All right, so those are covered. Colleen Secura, are you, I know you're on, so I'm going to let you answer or ask your question, please.
Hello, Loretta. How are you doing? We met in
Hello,
New Jersey
fine.
years ago. You came and spoke at our athlete conference. I introduced you.
remember that.
You remember that? We still speak of it. We would
Yes.
love to have you back. It was such a pleasure and a joy. You
I
were
had
so
fun.
inspiring. Good. I'm glad. It means we did it right.
Yes, you did.
Thank
Actually,
you.
they have one of the athletes who's on the USA Input Council and the North American Input Council.
Yes, Bobby Fredericks. I actually
Exactly.
worked with
Yeah.
Bobby last year in Maryland. I came and assisted him with the North American AIC. I'm achieving to that shortly, working on it.
Congratulations.
Thank you. My question for you is, what is your favorite part about being the chief inspiration?
You
What is it?
know, my favorite part is still just being an athlete, but I know I have a job to do when I represent the board and educating the board, because it's a lot of times, a lot of our board members come on the board and a lot of them like to sit on the board, but it's good to bring them because it brings revenue and it brings awareness to their company, whether it's a Boeing or United or Pepsi or Coke, to educate the people and to see the different minds working, and that I, as a person with intellectual disability with very little education, to be able to hear the input of the people and to have input to put back to those people to educate them. And it's a two-way street. And that's what I mostly enjoy about being on the board, that to see the different minds of people working together.
Awesome. Well said, and I agree 1,000%. That's always been my favorite part of working with the state office in New Jersey.
It's hard, and sometimes some of the board members, they're way up here.
Yeah.
Sometimes you have to bring them down. You got to bring them down. Unloosen your suit, buddy. Loosen your tie.
I'm sure you do it 1,000 times better than I do. You speak much better than I. Thank you so very much.
You are doing okay. You're doing well.
Oh, thank you very much.
Everyone on this meeting has something to offer.
Agreed.
And never put yourself down, because you're right up there on the same level as I am. We're all the same. Might speak differently, but that's okay. You probably have more education than I did, and you can read better than I can. But you know what? We're here together as a team. Together, everyone achieves more, and that's what the word team means.
I love that. Together, everyone achieves more. I'm writing that down. Is that okay?
Hey, I can make that up. Forever.
Great. All right. Thank you, Colleen. That was
Thank
wonderful.
you.
Danielle Marino. Ben, if you can get to Danielle, she has a question.
Go ahead, Miss Danielle.
Hi. What sport do you play in Special Olympics?
What sports do I play right now? I'm playing no sports. I was up at the park hitting tennis balls because there's wrap everywhere. We're in a city where it was red. So the basketball courts are all wrapped up, but I sneak up and I pull the weeds in front of my little spot. I call it the Farquhar Park Backboard Ghetto Tennis Club. Number of members 1, and that's me. Nobody never goes down and hit the backboard but me, but I have to pull all the weeds.
I help you.
But I love all my sports. I play like 9 sports, and I'm ready to be back with my friends. I'm tired of COVID.
All right. Thank you, Danielle.
You're welcome, Jason.
Donnie Harmon. Let's check in with Donnie. You got him, Ben?
Oh, I just had to find him for a second.
Yeah. It's a full house tonight.
Jason,
Awesome.
look here.
Hi, Donnie. You had a question. Do you remember what that question was?
What is the thing you love most about your job?
What is the thing I like most about my job is being able to see where Special Olympics came from. When I started in 1970, of course, the games started in 1968, to see how far they had came and grew, and seeing our athletes taking so many roles in such a short time. The Olympics started in, I think, like 1896, and they hadn't achieved as much as we have in growth. And seeing their athletes or seeing the growth of their programs like we have. We're in almost every country of the world as much as they are, but our athletes have so many opportunities that they can take the chance and be leaderships and work on boards and things like that, and just be a part of the program. Once you quit sport, there's always a spot somewhere else for you, whether it's to be a coach, whether it's to be assistant coach, whether it's to work out with the program. There's a lot. And to see that Special Olympics started out as just a training, a sport program for people with intellectual disability. Now our people are taking great roles in such a short time. See the growth of Special Olympics is, I'm just amazed. We're in schools, we're breaking down barriers all the time. You hear regular kids say, oh no, we don't use that kind of word, language in here. These are my friends talking about their peers who are people who might be in special education classes. And schools, our athletes are earning, not giving, they're earning their school jacket just like the regular ed students. I think that's awesome, because I didn't even have a chance to be on the track team, and I was the one that started it at my school.
Wow. So a quick question, Loretta. I think it was last year, maybe a year and a half ago, Special Olympics came out and said the first 50 years of Special Olympics were for Special Olympics athletes, and the next 50 years are going to be by Special Olympics athletes. What do you think the next 50 years hold for leadership or for athletes as a whole?
As a whole, Special Olympics, number one, will always be for Special Olympic athletes. Number two, it can be for other athletes who come into our programs. And we just have to learn to balance. It's really hard because the unified programs are really working in the schools, but there are still a lot of the programs, there are still athletes who like the traditional training, and they should have that opportunity. So right now the movement is shifting with a balance on how can we do this. And I think down the end, with the collaboration of all the people who are involved, unified schools, I'm hoping that down the end we can balance our scales, just like you see in the courtroom, you see the scales with the cups, that we can balance them, that there are opportunities for athletes who want to do traditional as well as athletes who want to play unified, and also for our older athletes, because so much is spoken about the youth. And we're a movement that starts at the age of 2.5 with young athletes on up to a person that gets older. And one of my biggest pet peeves is to see our older athletes being slighted out of things like world games and national games, because we're promoting health and fitness, and we probably got something that we could use to show the world that we include everyone and not just the very best. It's a good marketing tool, because right now health is a huge thing in our movement and in the world. And to keep people inspired, we need to have the programs for our older athletes as well as our younger athletes. Excellent. And that breaks down the barriers of so much high blood pressure, obesity, just getting people out there and being a part of something.
Great. Thank you, Loretta. That's a wonderful answer. Ben, can you find Jennifer Everett, please? I know she has a question.
Go ahead, Jen.
Hi, Loretta. I met you at the 2018 in Seattle. My question is, I got a bid it'll be my first time ever speaking in front of a big board. Yeah, I learned a lot. Just some of the athletes down here. Because a lot of the athletes down there and some of Mando County and Kia, a lot of them live in a group home and stuff. And they can't get out and do stuff and do the workouts because they can't leave the area. But how can I approach it?
It's really hard because we had the same problem with folks who live in group homes. At one time, they wanted me to go to a group home, but my mom looked at the counselor and says, Loretta will never be in a group home because she's a free-willing person. You're going to have more trouble out of her than if she lived on her own. So I totally live on my own. But I feel for those athletes. I have friends who live in a group home, and I feel so bad because they always, oh, well, we didn't have the staff to bring so-and-so to sing the national anthem. We have a young man who does a very good job at singing the national anthem. And because they didn't have staff. I think people in group homes should have the right to speak up and tell their staff that this is our home. You work for us. And you should see or go to whoever provides your home. Why can't we have more activities? Because Special Olympics is a perfect platform for everyone. And you don't have to go out for competition, but you just need to get out and have social interaction, to have fun. And I think the group homes are missing the boat by not letting the athletes go and always coming up with some sad excuse that there's not a lot of staff. They're being paid, so they should be able to make sure that the residents of their home have the same opportunities.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer.
And it's hard when you don't have a parent to stand behind their athlete. I feel bad for the people who don't have parents that support.
Some of them do, but some of them don't.
Exactly.
Andrew wanted to know, what sports do you play?
I play volleyball. My newest sport is volleyball. I play floor hockey, soccer, basketball, athletics, golf, tennis, skiing, ice skating. And I started kayaking, but now we can't do no golf, no kayaking, because this is kayaking season and golf season and tennis season, none. Because of, you know who, that guy called Corona.
It's going to be like Harry Potter, the he who shall not be named. So we're going to refer to Corona as.
Yeah. I refer to it as the Twilight Zone. You're entering a new dimension, the Twilight Zone.
I think Christine has a question.
Yep. Yeah, go ahead, Christine.
Hey, Loretta. I have not had a chance to meet you. My name is Christine Hughes. I'm an athlete from Special Olympics North Carolina, but I wear many hats within Special Olympics NC. But my question is my life didn't start in Special Olympics. I didn't know that I had an intellectual disability until I was given my adoption report in 2000. So I grew up playing high school and college sports. Now, I've had to earn my positions there. But when I came to Special Olympics and started competing at a higher level, like in tennis, because I did tennis, soccer, softball, basketball. So I play at a higher level, and I got told that some parents said that, why am I competing in Special Olympics if I've competed in high school and college? And I heard or was told that you had that same experience.
But the thing of it was, when I went to school, I had nothing.
Okay.
I started the track team through Title IX and got told, I think I told you earlier, so I did not have that level of competing in the high school or college. I never could go to college. Everything I did was on my own. And there wasn't the high-tech shoes and the coaches or anything. Just like now, I play tennis, but I go up to a park, the city park, and I belong to the Farquhar Park Backboard Ghetto Tennis Club. Number of members, 1, and that's me. And right now I'm pulling the weeds because the park in this city here won't pull the weeds. So I go up and pull so many weeds, and I hit my balls, and I throw my ball up and serve a little bit. And there are people over there playing, but they don't let me play with them.
Okay. I was going to ask you, how did
No,
that
I
make
never had no college. I was born with an intellectual disability. Actually, I was born blind and didn't walk to the age of 4.
Okay.
And I went to school and I was held back in kindergarten, first grade, and second grade until they had a special ed class to put me in. And I was educated in the basement of the city school. We were the nobodies.
Right. Right.
Great. Thank you, Christine.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Ben, I think Elizabeth had a question, right?
And we have Bailey, if there's time.
Okay, so yeah, we got time. Yep. Elizabeth, go ahead.
I've been waiting a long time to ask my question.
Yep. Go ahead.
My question
You're
is,
patient. Patience is a virtue.
yeah, my question is this. What are your sports that you play in Special Olympics?
I just mentioned them. There was 9 of them.
Which ones?
Volleyball, tennis. We call it soccer, but it's really football internationally. I ski. That's downhill.
Wow.
I do kayaking, which I just started last year. And it's my first year in volleyball. I figure skate. I golf. I do 9 sports.
Wow. Thank you for being here today.
Well, thank you for having me.
You're awesome. Could you come to one of our state games?
I would love
And
to.
watch us?
If they're not the same as our state games.
Yeah, often we have them at the same weekend, Elizabeth. We have to get together with Pennsylvania, straighten that out.
Yeah, actually, Maryland was supposed to hold the law enforcement torch run. And I was looking forward to going to that.
Yeah, we sure were. It was going to be great. All right, so I know Bailey has a question. Bailey, are you ready?
Hello,
Bailey.
I'm Bailey Mooney. I was a chairperson before, and now I'm the county rep for this area. So,
Awesome.
for asking input council.
Whoa, talk about a leader.
Yes, yeah. So I know you love
about 50-some leaders here.
Yes, yes, and all different leaders help to organize meetings. And for me, I am helping my community out with checking the planning meeting for
It's awesome.
So my main question is, which year did you go to DC?
What year did she go to DC, Bailey? Is that it? Okay,
Yes,
just making sure.
yes.
Yep.
You went to speak to the senators?
Yes.
Yes. I heard you help your community out. What do you do with your community?
Well, I lead athletes and I help them. And I want to do MC for basketball too.
Okay.
And so I got cancer by COVID-19 too.
Awesome.
You know, I played basketball, soccer, swimming, kayaking, and sailing.
I'm not really good at swimming. I used to swim.
Okay.
But I'm not that great at it.
Sailing and kayaking.
All right. So Bailey, you wanted to know, I just want to make sure I understood the question, that what year did Loretta start going to DC as the Chief Inspiration Officer?
Yes.
Okay.
I think I only had this role maybe 3 or 4 years, maybe 4 years.
Okay.
Not even that.
Oh. Do you like DC?
What did he say?
Do you love DC?
Yes, do you love DC?
Well, you know, it's a busy city. I usually leave my home and go to meetings and I come straight home. I don't even get a chance to run because we're so busy. And I love to run. And DC is the perfect place to run, but that's not what I'm there for. I'm focused more on, making sure that our programs can be the very best. So a lot of times I have to give up my running, and I'll go to the gym in the hotel maybe at 10 o'clock at night to work out.
Ooh. Okay. I went to DC too. This
Awesome.
year. So
You're
I was
close to
talking
DC.
about funding for Special Olympics, money for Special Olympics.
Wow.
It's like fundraising, so that's what we're doing, polar bear plunge to raise enough money for uniforms.
And you did it in DC?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think, are you talking about Capitol Hill Day, Bailey?
Yes, Chicken, yes.
Okay, Capitol Hill Day, yeah.
Yes. And he was talking about the polar plunge. Maybe he did the DC plunge.
Well, I did not do that.
No, you went to Annapolis.
No.
Okay, he didn't do that.
I'm looking to Annapolis and St. Mary's too.
Well, Loretta, when you have the best plunge in the world in Maryland, there's no need to go.
Oh, you all got the plunges rocking. I think you got the best plunge in the country. I did that plunge, and it was, I looked at the police when I used to go to speak to the policemen. They said, Loretta, we want you to do your plunge. And I looked at the guy and said, what color is a polar bear? And the police would look at me. I said, and what color am I? And get out of it. Till one day, I was in Frederick, Maryland, speaking to a whole group of law enforcement officers. One is Miss Claiborne. I have under all that fur. And we'll see you at Sandy Point State Park. And I looked at him, I said, if you think you can raise $5,000 from the time I leave this stage to go to the restroom and get my coat, I'll think about it. I came out that restroom, I got my coat, they said, Miss Claiborne, we'll see you at Sandy Point State Park. And I plunged with 10,000 people. That's like the biggest plunge I've ever been to. That's not a plunge, that's a rock party.
It is pretty good, pretty good. All right, so.
I have one more question if you have time.
Do you have time, Loretta?
I'm here for you. I got the time.
Right.
I'm not doing nothing. We're quarantined and it's a curfew here.
Go ahead, Anastasia.
Hi, I'm Anastasia. I started like, I don't know if they answered this question, but what is your favorite sport?
My favorite sport, and when I look at all the sports I play, I still like to run. You know why?
Why?
It's cheap.
What?
It's cheap. All you need is have a pair of sneakers and put one foot in front of the other. I started out as a runner back in 1966 with my brother, and still today I run, but I only run for exercise now.
Oh, that's why I run for fun.
And it gives me time to think.
No, I have a question.
It gives me time to think.
No, I have a question.
Yes.
Now, since it's quarantine, do you still run? And
oh, yeah.
Also, while you're running, does it clear your mind?
It does.
That's what
Today
I do.
I went for
clear
a
my
walk.
mind, I run.
You're allowed to walk and you're allowed to run. The parks are all closed, but I go up and hit my tennis balls. I see those people swinging down on those swings and the cops don't say nothing to them, and I'm by myself. And they're in groups, but if they get caught, they can get a fine.
Right.
But no, I still go running every day, and I have my mat here. I'm going to exercise tonight. My sister and I, we walked up at the reservoir. That's where I was coming from. That's why I still got my jacket on and my coat, because she was depressed from this. So I'm trying to help her out to get over her depression.
Yeah, I'm actually really depressed today too.
Yeah. And I said to her, I said, Lisa, get your mask. And I said to her, I said, well, this is what a sign of the times are these days. I'm ready to ditch it.
Same
I think
here.
I'm going to frame this thing.
Same
burn
here.
Yes.
Great.
But
Thank
you know, I use humor. Humor gets me through it.
I mean, I'm trying to, but right now, today, it's just been a very hard day.
Yeah. Especially when it rains.
Yes.
Yes.
Good. Thank you, Anastasia. All right. Ben, I think that's it, right?
Josh Smith had a question real quick.
Josh Smith,
Sure.
I see. He is in transit. Hey, Josh, how's it going?
Pretty good. How you guys doing? I remember Loretta because me and her have been doing a lot of cool stuff. Right now, how many years you been in Special Olympics right now?
I started Special Olympics in 1970, January of 1970. So I just celebrated my 50th year.
Hey, I've been celebrating my 30th.
Great.
Yeah, that's why you and I have been doing a lot of cool things, and I want to say thank you for all you do. And hey, keep on rocking, and we save our lives together.
And thank you all for what you do, because you're a part of the movement. It's a big movement, and what you do at home makes the movement grow. And it's all positive. We're going to get over this. We're going to get over this hump, and we're going to be back.
Yes, and also Carroll County got lifted, so it's a good move for me though. So I've been walking every day.
Exactly, and that's you don't have to do long walks. You can walk around your block.
Right.
Great, thank you, Josh.
And I hear a lot of people saying, "Oh, I'm exercising at home. I can't get out." You're allowed to walk, and you're allowed to run. And what I do is I go running, and if I see somebody on the pavement and they don't have a mask, I just jog on the side or around the cars and pass them. I'm 10 feet away and get back on the pavement.
Good strategy. Good. All right, everybody. That does take us past our time. I really appreciate everyone who submitted questions. Loretta, genuinely, thank you so much for spending some time with us this evening.
And thank you. Sorry for the bad hair day and hat. I was out walking.
Far from it.
Yeah. No,
we were up at the reservoir.
You're in great shape. It's quarantine. There's a lot of forgiveness around, right?
Yes. I'll be 67 this summer, but age is just a way of thinking.
You see what
you think you're old, then you're old.
Yeah. So at the end of most of our social clubs, we do the long goodbye. Yes. We just unmute everybody, and I know everyone would like to express their appreciation as well. So Ben, if you would just unmute everybody, and then we're good to go.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a great rest of your
Thank you, Loretta. Pleasure.
It was nice
great
to
time
talk to
meeting
you
you,
for a
Mrs.
bit.
Claiborne.
Everybody.
Great time meeting
Listen,
you.
Nora, awesome to see you.
You too.
Miss you, Loretta.
Nora.
Hello.
How about a virtual hug?
Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Whenever you're ready, Jason.
Take care, everyone.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for joining. Everyone from Connecticut, New Jersey, Kansas, Florida, everybody. We really
For having all of
yeah.
us.
Yeah, what a group.
Thank you, Marilyn.
Oh, yeah. All right. Good night, and thank you again.
See you guys.
Missing.
Thank you.
See you, Jason.